Good morning. Thanks for being here. I'm very happy to be here for the second time, but the first time I wasn't on this stage. I was just visiting the office. It's a very cool office, I must say. And so I prepared some morning songs for you to wake up. A few Chopin pieces. I will start with one of the very beautiful Nocturne. And then one or two Études, and then Chopin Waltz. So hopefully we will get really waked after 20 minutes of performance. Thank you. Well.
Hello, I'm Jeff Spurgeon from WQXR, New York's classical station, 105.9 FM, online at WQXR.org. You may not know, because nobody told you, this is Lang Lang. He's a classical pianist, reasonably well known all over the globe. And it's quite a wonderful thing to hear you play. Let me ask you, what was your warm-up for this just this morning? Did you warm up this morning?
I'm sorry, I didn't warm up. I woke up around 10:20. I'm like, oh God! We were like running like crazy in the street to get here, and I'm really grateful that you are here today, waiting for me. And thank you very much.
It's really wonderful. It's really wonderful.
Thank you.
It's extraordinary to have all that music just in your hands, just at your command. But that's what you do.
But what Rubinstein said, one of the greatest pianists, and he said he has like 60 piano concertos in his head, and basically during his 70s or 80s, he said, just call me up, wake me up in the middle of the night, like let's say 4 a.m. and I can play whatever piece you want in concert level.
Well, I believe it, but so can you. He's had a little more. He had a little more practice over time than you so far, but you'll be there. In China, Lang Lang is credited with influencing some 40 million kids to take up classical piano. Now, I know that 40 million is not maybe a huge number at Google, but still. It's a reasonably large number of people to persuade to take up. And when you think about all the pianos that have to be made and all the music that has to be printed and all the lessons that have to be paid for, I would say that you are, without question, classical music's greatest job creator. I don't think there's anybody who's going to do more than that than you are. Lang Lang's new album on the Sony label is the Chopin Album. It contains at its heart the Opus 25 set of a dozen Études, studies for piano, that you have been studying since I think you were, 8 is when you started to play those things?
Yeah, I started to play the Chopin Études when I was 8.
Took them on the road when you were 12 or 13?
Yeah, I played the complete Études when I was 13.
Right.
And it was very tiring to play those pieces. It drives me nuts and drives my neighbors nuts. I really feel bad about recently I started practicing in my apartment here,
right,
and start practicing Chopin Études, and then my neighbor knocked my door. He said, could you stop?
Really? Did they really? You're making that up.
Yeah. There's one neighbor who knows who I am, so she always like, oh, that's really wonderful. But then another neighbor, I think, living downstairs, and because I always like to practice after 11, to find inspiration. And this lady, I think she hates me all the time. So anyway, so that's.
Well, so you've been playing these since you were 8, playing them in public since you were 13. Why record them now? Why not a little earlier? Why not wait a couple more years? Maybe the wine will mellow a little more in the bottle. Why decide to do these now?
Since I'm 30, I like to do some more repertoire which I played a lot when I was a kid, and also putting some new pieces. I actually thought to do the 24 Études, the complete cycle, but I thought maybe I should do something not just technical pieces, but also very artistic pieces combined for the Chopin first solo album for me to record, and also to hear. I was actually watching the video that I did when I was 13, playing the complete Études, and if I feel wrong notes, I'm like, and now playing a few of those pieces like the Winter Wind and Ocean Études, now feels slightly easier, slightly, yeah. So that seems like a good sign,
Right.
After 17 years of practice, my technique is going somewhere. And but more importantly, is the musical sense that there are so many new things I'm trying to interpret in this album, and to try to find different colors like you have here, different levels of colors, and the combination of the styling of Chopin, the romantic period of repertoire. And especially last year, I did the list, so I thought this was a nice momentum to do Chopin. So next year will be very different. So
what's next year?
Next year I will do Prokofiev and Bartok.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's very, very different.
Gnarly
approach.
Yeah, totally different. Totally different world. There's some unusual pieces on this album. The Andante, spianato, and Grande Polonaise, big favorite of yours, done with orchestra sometimes, but there's the solo version. You've always liked this piece?
Not really. I mean, when I was a kid, I hated it because, I mean, no matter how great the work are, if there are so many pianists playing the same piece, not in a very good level, then you will feel kind of bored, And so that exactly happened when I was a kid. I heard so many interpretations of this piece, I got totally overwhelmed, and I didn't like it. Then I came to America, and I studied at Curtis in Philadelphia. Do you know the Philly cheesesteak? It's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so in Philadelphia, a boy from Kiev, he also studied with the same teacher as me, Gary Graffman.
Gary Graffman.
And he played in the student recital. I was shocked by his playing. I'm like, wow, this piece is spectacular. And then I started to loving this piece, and thanks to him, of course. And so sometimes, one amazing performance really change your entire view of a work, and that what happens in the spianato and Grande Polonaise.
Nocturnes, you played actually a wonderful cross-section of the album just a few minutes ago. There's a piece on this album, it's the last selection, it's called Tristesse, and it features a singer named Åland, who is from
Sweden, I think.
Sweden. She lives in Williamsburg, because most people do.
Right. Yeah, Brooklyn is getting big now.
It's beautiful. And can you tell me the story of this, because it's from a film?
Right.
Tristesse.
We did a film during the Chopin year called The Flying Machine. So it's basically adapt a novel kind of about Poland today, and there's compared the Chopin's days. So I was actor in this movie, and my partner was Heather Graham, from Austin and Powers, the girl.
Yeah, Heather Graham. Many faces lit up when you said those words.
Yeah, right. Anyway, but that one was a pretty classic. I need a hangover thing. With the baby. Yeah, and so that film actually was quite inspiring, because it was Chopin's music and takes the journey of a piano. Actually, a piano became a flying machine. So we take the kids over the world. Right. And so the theme song, we actually thought the Trustees, which is Opus 10 number 3, Etudes, is such a beautiful melody, which I played second to the last. And so we transcribed that to the theme song. So we get this beautiful voice. Her name is pretty fun, Åland. Yeah. So in the beginning, I didn't know it's a he or she, But then when I heard the voice, I'm all certain it's she. Yeah. And she did a wonderful job.
Yeah, it's a sweet song, and Chopin. A lot of popular songs have been written on Chopin themes, but
yes.
And this is another one, so it's just great. Your foundation, let's talk about that, because that's such a big deal. The Lang Lang International Music Foundation, it's going great guns. You had some kids, I think, from part of that program on The Tonight Show?
Yeah,
recently?
2 weeks ago I was on Jay Leno.
4 minutes of classical music on network television. It was extraordinary. It was 4 whole minutes. It was amazing.
These days it's hard to get classical music on.
That's exactly right.
Anyway, Jay is a good friend, and his name is JJ now, after.
After Lang Lang, right, sure.
Oh my God, he has 400 cars. Anyway, let's not talk about that. So we actually had a very fortunate selection of wonderful talents from Los Angeles area, and they were. I mean, some of the kids actually I know them before because they performed with me. My foundation actually.
There were young kids too. There were 10 of them. So
Yeah.
Lang Lang played. You played some La Campanella and the E flat waltz that you heard part of here, and then 10 kids, 5 other Steinways around in the room, and they all joined you for the Mozart Rondo alla Turca.
Yeah, Turkish march. I'm sure you know. And it was so beautiful that I really enjoyed working with them, but the way they played, it was magnificent.
Yeah, very sweet.
I mean, I thought everyone watching, our next generation perform, it's a special moment, and for me, it's very inspiring. And that's what our foundation wanting to do, to work with the next generation of artists and to helping them, to support them to achieve their dreams.
Right.
Yeah, just like many of the mentors helped me when I was very young.
So it's about helping the next generation, not necessarily about classical music. I mean, it is classical focused, I think, but
yeah, it will be a focus on classical and piano, but in the same time, we will also to do some event, let's say, with Grammy people and VHI people. So we are trying to break the boundaries through this wonderful projects, and I created this 101 pianists project. So
you have 100 pianists with you on stage.
Yes,
is that the idea?
Yes, and 50 pianos, so people play 4 hands. So the reason is that
that's also a great job creator too, just for the movers.
I mean, the movers were quite happy about it. But the reason we wanted is that as a pianist, we always practice by ourselves. It's sometimes very lonely. You are in a dark room, much darker than this room. I practice hours, and it's hard training. And for a kid, it's important to have a partner. So like two kids on one piano, and so they can talk a little bit. It's like do your homework, that type of thing. And then the teachers can teach them, how to play together, and then in the end we all get together and to play and enjoy the music.
Music making that.
Yeah.
October 30th at Carnegie Hall, the Lang Lang International Music Foundation is having a big benefit concert and evening with Joshua Bell and Dee Dee Bridgewater and the formerly mentioned Hollande.
And Alec Baldwin.
And Alec Baldwin will be the host.
Yeah.
And some scholars. So what's going to happen that night? Just a bunch of music making, I guess?
Yeah.
Do you collaborate with everybody? You're doing something with Dee Dee Bridgewater?
Yeah, so here I start to play some Chopin, and then with Josh, we play the Greek violin and piano sonata.
Is he JJ also to you?
Josh.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah, and then in the second half, we start with 4 hands, 6 hands, 8 hands, and 10 hands.
On one piano?
No.
Okay, just checking. Just checking.
Yeah, 10 hands in one piano. That's
well, you'd know each other very well by the end of the piece. You'd be very familiar.
That's like Subway in New York, yeah.
That's right. You are a master. At the age of 30, you are a master, recognized around the globe. But are you still a student, and do you see any of your old teachers? Gary Graffman was your teacher at Curtis. I know you've done a little bit of work with Daniel Barenboim.
Absolutely.
When you see them, do you play for them and ask them for their thoughts? Is it a lesson? They give you how does it work at this level where you are in your stage of artistry with these older mentors, I guess you'd call them? Yeah,
I mean, my teachers were, still are, Gary Graffman, Christoph Eschenbach, Daniel Barenboim, and they helped me tremendously. Not just technically, but...
I was going to say, they're not going to say, you missed the E flat in the 40th bar. That's not what they do. So what do they...
sometimes they do that too. But because the great musicians like those names, and they're much more focused on the understanding and also on the traditional interpretations. So they will show you how the traditional sound, and then we will start to discussing about new possibilities of how we recreate those moments, the traditional lines. And then, they will help me to find out my ways. I will start to explore some of my ideas on those passages, how I'm going to do it. And obviously, we know that music, there are certain style, but there's not a certain rules. So basically, there are a lot of alternatives. And the important thing is how to organize the alternatives and how to balancing them, which having a right pause. And this is the challenge, because you can do a lot of interpretations, but if it doesn't balance, if it doesn't, in the end, doesn't make sense, then all those feelings are wasted. And so first you should explore, and then you need to limit, your interpretations into certain ways. And then in the concert, you start everything new again. Try to get inspired from the actual stage and to recreate new feelings, new emotion, but aware of that tradition lines, which will hold every interpretations in the right speed and right pause.
Yeah. Well, you're part of it. You're part of that tradition. Right. You're recreating it and making it new at the same time. I should say too that there's time for questions from all of you here at the end. A little bit. I'll just hold. Just think of your question.
Hold the line. Hold the line.
Yeah, exactly. And I've wondered about the transition from Chinese culture to Western culture for you in music as well, because you grew up playing this music for a very long time. For me, Chinese classical music is a little bit strange and maybe a little bit difficult to listen to, because I haven't had as much experience with it. You've been steeped in both traditions. Do you hear them the same way, or do you switch sort of from one to another? And you've put them together too, because you've done lots of piano transcriptions of traditional Chinese pieces that weren't thought of on the piano.
It's just like this, when you hear American music, when you hear German music, when you hear African music, it's different,
right?
But in the same time, it's all called music. It's like language, in the end, we are trying to expressing similar subjects, similar feelings, but using different wording and different language. That's a bit like in music world. Obviously, you need to switch fast with the taste of the music making. But in the end of the day, for example, I grew up both in Chinese traditional music and Western classical, because my father plays erhu, which is Chinese violin. Recently I found a different, interesting thing of the difference between fork and chopsticks, and the difference between erhu and violin.
Okay.
Did you see the similarity?
Yeah, I understand.
So erhu has two strings, and violin have four.
And chopstick 2, a fork usually four times. Right.
So here we go. So that's the difference.
Very good. That's a very good answer. Do you think it's? One of the things with your foundation, you're helping people to explore classical music. Do you feel like you can make people like classical music? I feel like sometimes it's a sales job. Nobody says, "Oh my God, you've got to hear rock and roll. You won't believe what this stuff is." Nobody says it. But about classical music, sometimes people say, "Oh, well, if you haven't heard it, you should maybe listen to a little bit of it." Do you feel like you're ever having to sell it? The idea of it?
One experience I got was pretty funny. It was the two experiences. The first was in America, and then I talk about China. Okay, so first in America, I came when I was 15, and then I was in a regular high school in Philadelphia. All those dudes and yamis, and then they asked me, so what do you do here in this country? I'm like, I'm studying classical music. Classical music? What is that? Oh, I know. Are you playing the dudes who's already passed like 500 years ago? You do his work? I said, yeah, it's kind of like that, but not. I said, just thinking about Shakespeare, right? he died for many years. He passed, but still his work is classic, right? So that I know we have a serious problems, you know. And then a few years later, I went back to China for for concerts, and then during the CD signings, there's one guy came. It's like, I saw that you are recording the same label as Mozart. So see, it's totally opposite, but somehow it's quite funny.
Right.
So in a way that that gives us the room to to have some work to do. But I don't think we need to sell this this art, because classical music is so wonderful. It just people sometimes don't know it. That's it. We just need to using social media networks and platforms to.
Can you give an example of social media? Just kidding. It's Google Talks. It's right. Google. It's Google Talks. Sorry.
I mean, remember a few years ago, YouTube had a YouTube Symphony Orchestra competition, and it was a big phenomenon on internet. And I had a great privilege to be the ambassador for the project. So in the future, I mean, today even when I tweet or Facebooking, I start to share some of the musical thoughts, not just talking about food and movies, but to share a little bit of feelings to the music I play, and then I share some of my favorite links of great musicians perform, and to try to inspire some fans and to listen. Yeah.
Very good, thank you. All right, there are microphones over there, so if you have questions, please go to a microphone, and we'll line you up and knock you down with Lang Lang.
Hi, my name is Samir. I'm here at Google. I'm a father. I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And for better or worse, my kids are into popular music. And
good for you.
Yeah, I'm wondering, so making them sit down and listen to better music, to classical music, feels a little heavy-handed.
Oh, thank you very much.
Feels a little heavy-handed. I was wondering, what have you found really works with kids to get them engaged and interested in new kinds of music, in particular classical music?
Yeah, there are a few composers which I felt quite have a really good connection to kids. One is Tchaikovsky, pieces like Nutcracker or Swan Lake, and Mozart. Mozart probably is the best composer to inspire the kids, and Chopin also, I would say, very melodic. But you wouldn't start with Wagner's Ring Cycle right away. That's a little hard. So good luck. Maybe there's a new Lady Gaga comes out.
Hi, quick question. Along those lines, I have a 4- and a 6-year-old, and they like
baby time.
They start and stop things, especially my 6-year-old daughter. She's interested now in piano. How do I get that going, keep that going? Get her, because I imagine there'll be challenges along the way.
First, get a good teacher. It's very important. And very important, if you have a time, please take her to kids event, kids concert. I'm sure Carnegie does a lot of those things, and Lincoln Center, or take her to some of the concerts that other kids perform. Yeah. Because for me, it was the same. The reason I started liking performance when I was very young, it's because all my friends were musicians, and they were actually playing something, and we can actually playing together, like 2 pianos or 3 pianos, or violin, play a trio, little trio. And music's like language. We need a communication. We need to use our language. If you learn a new language, if you don't use it, you're not interested and you forget about it. So, those communication is very important.
I know there's at least one more question. It's just, yeah.
I think I can just ask here without the microphone.
I'll repeat it.
First of all, as a Chinese, I'm very proud of your, everything.
Thank you.
Exporting the Chinese culture to the world. It's a really good job. My question is totally different. Do you have any plan to do some record like a Bach or something more classic, like a
Global variation.
yeah, something like that?
Absolutely.
Also
Yeah.
romantic thing.
Okay, so the question was,
Yeah.
do you have any? What are your plans for your next recordings? And will you Bach
Yeah.
specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I love Bach. You know, when I was a kid, I play Bach's work every week, and I try to memorize a work by Bach every week to train my brain. You know. By the way, after that, you can remember every cell phone numbers you want. And yeah, Bach is really, really challenging, but incredible. Certainly, I would love to record the Goldberg variation. Certainly, I will do more classic repertoire records, but it need to be balanced. So this year and last year I did a lot of romantics, and then next year will be contemporary, and then so I'm trying to balance the recordings. Yeah. Thanks for bringing the Goldberg, by the way. Yeah.
You, sir.
So there's a lot of talk about. Sorry, I'm very tall. There's a lot of talk about bringing classical music to children, and I am in some sense a product of that. My father went way out of his way to play classical music. He really enjoyed it, and I hated it as a kid. And I'm here, so that's obviously no longer the case. But I studied, or at least I was taught classical guitar.
Oh.
And that lapsed for several years while I went and did university, and now I'm here, so I guess the lapse was a little worthwhile. But what advice would you give towards adults who have a musical sensibility, who have musical appreciation, and I guess in my case have, or in more general cases do not have some degree of musical training, because children are taught at a very early age to begin to play classical music or any music in general. Is there any fear that I should have in terms of lack of dexterity, I guess, plasticity of mind? What advice would you give towards adults who want to begin to hopefully, with a lag, reach the kind of level you operate on?
Or you're getting deep. Wow. Adult, yeah. I mean, there's a app called Magic Piano, which I co-produced. I mean, if you feel difficult to play the real piano, try that. It will be easier to play because somehow it's play it by itself. Yeah. And you can certainly buy a piano which has a kind of a high-tech disc, and then you just push whoever's Chopin, whoever's Tchaikovsky, whoever's Beethoven, and somehow, and then you can maybe start to see the positions on the pianos and try to follow it. But again, I'm really welcoming adults actually learning instrument, and especially you had a musical training before, right? So for you it will be very easy actually to pick it up again, the great work you did before. And maybe now when you do it, you will feel more comfortable. Maybe you will like it more than when you were a kid. And also, classical guitar is pretty cool. And I'm sure, when you play, you get some new dates or something. So, I mean, that's very encouraging. I know some of my friends whose adults study piano. I said, why are you doing it? Oh, I try to impress the girls. So I mean, I know lots of those people. So which is a good, encouragement, right? So yeah.
Choice of instrument can be important for that too. You'll get more dates with the guitar probably than with an accordion. Just a thought.
Guitar is very popular these days.
As
I
you
mean,
plan.
Probably the one of the instrument I can think of more popular than piano is probably guitar. Yeah. I would like to learn it actually. Yeah, guitar. I mean, if maybe I should learn some classical guitar skill from you. Yeah.
I'd love to give you a.
I got new lessons from you.
Pointers from a competent teacher, right?
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask, when you memorize a piece, is it only technical, or do you also memorize like how you feel? Is it like before you start playing, do you have to get into the emotion of that piece, or is just the music getting you there when you hear it?
Yeah, that's yeah. First, sometimes I hear a great music in my ear, whether it's any type of music. I just trying to memorize the melodies first, and I want to somehow play on the pianos. But some work I know it for many years, and it doesn't mean that you start to love those repertoire right away. Some pieces takes few years to digest, and then you're like, wow, I should do it. And so first comes to the general stuff. You read a score after you're really liking this piece. You want to learn, right? So you learn it from the score and you play simply, just whether play by your right hand or putting it together, practice. And after that, you are trying to analyzing the piece and using everything you learned from the past. And your head should be like a multimedia screen. Try to pick a lot of elements and try to put those things inside of the music. Because the most important thing is not the note, it's the things behind the note, the meaning behind the note. So the more meanings you're getting, is better for the first work session, and then later you're just try to balance the right ones, and you will know the right ones when you're ready. In the beginning you don't really know, so you try a lot of things, and then later you will know, wow, this will not work because this is maybe doesn't fit in the style, and then later, after you really understand the dynamics of the score, you start to recreate things, and then you play for several of your teachers or your colleagues and to get more ideas, and then you start looking into this work again, and then you start performance, and when you perform every day, every time you should try different things, and after a year, I think you are ready for recording. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of alternatives. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Itai. I work in Google. I actually have the opposite problem from Samir with my 2.5-year-old daughter. She actually loves classical music.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
And she even goes to sleep while hearing Andrea Bocelli and you playing there, which is very nice. I have a different question. I want to learn playing the piano myself as well. And I heard...
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's a great idea. Yeah.
I'm pretty old, I'm 35. My question is actually a two-part. First of all, I've heard about something called the Suzuki method, but I heard conflicting opinions about it. So I wonder what's your take on it. And the second part, is it how do you say it, real ambition to learn to play the piano at such a late age, and to do even something minimal?
Never too late, Suzuki method. Actually, I didn't know that method when I was practicing. And then later I know the method, but I've been brought up by just playing scales, so I didn't really have any method. Try this method or not. I think that's maybe it's important for some people, but it's not necessary to be focused on one method, because in the end of the day, there's so many ways of playing piano, and you don't want to stuck with one thing, in the very beginning, and you just stuck with it.
But I understood that Suzuki method, both the father and the child are learning together. I thought that's
my father also did that, but it was a different kind of method. Yeah, he's playing like the strict method.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, but I'm sure it will work for many people. I just didn't brought up by that method, but I'm always this is a very challenging way to know what is the real right beginning method for kids to learn piano. We're still trying to figure that out. So once I know more about it, I let you know. Yeah. but seriously, you can always learn piano no matter how old you are. I mean, I have a doctor friend. You know, he's a wonderful doctor, lives in Germany, and he's now, I think, 50 years old.
Good God,
And
50.
Yeah. He started, because he always loved the piano, but he never had money to learn when he was very young. He was focused in the medicine, you know. Then somehow after he became a very successful doctor, he wanted to establish his childhood dream, which is to play beautiful songs. And so he started to learn piano when he turned 42. Seriously, this is and he find a teacher who's very young, like early 20s, but a very good guy and very solid pianist. So he started learn things from him, and you know what? He just made this 50-year-old doctor just made his family archive recording of 10 of his favorite pieces, including the Schumann Tremeri, Dreaming, including the Schubert Impromptus, including the Chopin's Waltz, including Liszt Consolation. So this guy is like only learned a few years, but he has his golden top 10. So he can open a radio show, like top 10. And he plays very beautiful. I mean, the technique maybe is not really there, but he certainly put his emotions there, which is more important somehow, And so I'm sure you can do that same, and I'm sure you're much younger than age. Yeah. So good luck.
One more question. You.
So, given the level of evocativeness that you achieve, I have to wonder, do you have some sort of meditative practice other than at the piano? What are your favorite ways to tap into, say, greater levels of humanity?
The first really important thing is taking naps. Talking about meditation, right? I mean, that's the first thing come to my mind. Because I'm such a night person, I don't sleep well in the night. I just get over my mind with some strange ideas. So, but during the day, I like to take like 1 hour nap, and then somehow that calms me down, and I feel great. And also, I think the best way to for ourselves to get ready mentally is reading books. Read as much as you can, and also after reading, take a little walk in the park, or go to museums. This for me is the best way of learning new knowledge and relaxing, and this makes me a much better musician and human being. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And thanks to everyone here at Google today, and thanks to Lang Lang. Great.
Thank you.